Factoring. Factoring can be quite challenging for a lot of students. There are different ways of factoring. I'm going to just show you the definition of what factoring is, give you some examples of it, and then it is something you might want to practice. Okay, so what factoring is showing different ways to use multiplication to come up with a certain or a specific value. For instance, if I show you the number 12 and I say, hey, what two numbers can I multiply together to give me the value 12? And then you just start listing sets of numbers that multiplied together give you 12. So for instance, you could say, well, 1 times 12 is 12. I would say, yeah, that is correct. I would say, are there others? And you'd say, yeah, what about 2 times 6? Say, yes, 2 times 6 is also 12. I would say, is that all the numbers? And then you'd say, no, can also do 3 times 4 will give me 12. I'd say, yes, that's correct. And I would ask, is that the only way to put two numbers together using multiplication to come up with a number 12? And you would say, yeah, that's it. There are no other ways. 1 times 12, 2 times 6, and 3 times 4 are the only ways to come up with the number 12. Then my next question would be this: how many factors does the number 12 have? Now, when I'm asking you that question, what I'm asking you is about these individual numbers. So I'm saying, hey, can I use 1 to come up with 12? Yes. Can 2 come up with 12? Yes. 3? Yes. 4? Yes. 6? Yes. 12? Yes. Now, most people will say, that Baron, that was really weird. What do you mean each one is a factor? Another way to understand factors, or what factoring is by the idea of multiplication and division. Another way to describe this is this. For instance, let's say I have the number 12, and I'd say, show me all the numbers that I can divide by to become 12. Well, you'd say, well, I can divide 12 by 1, and 1 can go into 12 times. And I'd say, yeah, that's exactly right. So 12 I can divide by 1, correct? Yes, I can divide by 1. Okay, so 1 is a factor of 12. Yes, it is, because I can divide 1 into 12, and I can come up with a whole number answer. The same way I can do with the number 2. I can take the number 12 and divide by 2. I'd say, how many times does 2 go into 12? You'd say 6 times. I'd say, yes, it does. Is it a whole number answer? Yes, it is. It's the 6, no other values. So is 2 a factor of 12? You would say, yes, I can divide 12 by 2. Can I divide 12 by 3? Yes. Can I divide 12 by 4? Yes. Can I divide 12 by 6? Yes. And can I divide 12 by 12? Yes. So that's why each one of these is called a factor, because I can divide 12 by each one of these numbers. So again, if I asked you, how many factors does 12 have? You would tell me 12 has 6 factors: the number 1, the number 2, the number 3, the number 4, the number 6, and the number 12. Now, you'll notice that we didn't start that way. When we actually started and I said, hey, let's list all the factors of 12, what we did is we started with multiplication. And what we did is we said, what two numbers can I multiply to come up with the number 12? And that's why we started here. We said, well, 1 times 6, or 1 times 12 gives me 12. 2 times 6 gives me 12. 3 times 4 gives me 12. Because this is a better way to come up with the factors of what this number is. And you're actually coming up with both factors at the same time. Here, let's try again. Let's use a different number. Okay, let's think about the number 20. Now, in order to do factoring, you have to kind of understand your multiplications. This will cause you difficulties if you're multiplication is kind of weak. You can get definitely stronger in your multiplication. You just need to practice. Factoring is something you will do for the test, and it is very common in other types of things that you will be asked to do. So again, what I normally do is I'll say, hey, when factoring, they do this thing. It's called, it's not, I think it's called a tree. I don't remember exactly the technical word, but I always tell people, hey, let's start with the number 1. Can I multiply 1 times something to give me 20? Now, the number 1 times itself, it's called the universal factor. 1 can always become 20. 1 times itself. 1 times 20 is 20. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 7 is 7. 1 times anything is always going to give you that number. So they call it the universal factor. It's part of it. Then I go to the number 2. I start thinking about the number 2. Can I multiply 2 times anything to give me 20? And that answer is yes, 2. 2 times 10. This helps me stay organized when I'm thinking about what numbers can I multiply it together to become the value I'm looking for, 20. Then I think about the next number, which is 3. Can I multiply 3 times anything? No. 3 times no numbers is going to give me 20. So 3 is not a factor. Then I move to the next idea. What about the number 4? Yeah, 4 times 5 is 20. Oh, that's right. 4 times 5 is 20 also. Now, one thing that I do is when I'm teaching students, I'll teach them to write it this way. Actually, if you notice, we've actually been writing it and we've been listing each math problem in a downward direction, right? So we're starting with the number 1, then we think about the next digit and we say, oh, the next digit is 2. I can multiply the next digit, not a 3, but a 4. And you'll see that there is an order about the way that we think about these factors. It's the most organized way to do it, because if you start just doing random things or thinking about random ideas, like for instance, the number 24, and you're like, oh, 24, yeah, that is 2 times 12. And you just start randomly at places, you can lose track of other factors. So it's nice to kind of list them out this way. Another thing I'll tell students is, like, look at the numbers 1, 2, 4. Students will say, well, you can also multiply 5 times 4. And I'd say, yeah, technically you can, but it's the same value as 4 times 5. So 4 times 5 is the same as 5 times 4. So it doesn't change, in fact, that's like, oh, that's something new. It's not something new. So if I asked you, how many factors does 20 have? Hopefully you'd say 20 has 6 factors: the number 1, the number 2, the number 4, the number 5, the number 10, and the number 20. I can divide the number 20 by each one of these numbers, and I can get a whole number answer. Let's try one more time. Now, this time, you try on your own. I'm going to put a number up here. You try listing all of the factors of the number that I'm about to write. I'm going to put the number 24 up here. Go ahead and pause the video. Think about all the ways that you can multiply to come up with a number 24 and list them right below this number. Go ahead and pause the video and then start it in a minute and see if we come up with the same numbers. Okay, here we go. Are you ready? I'm going to think about the number 1. And of course, 1 times anything is always going to give me, 1 times itself is always itself. 1 times 24 is 24, the universal factor. Then I think about the next number, which is the number 2. So yeah, the number 2, 2 times 12. That'll give me 24. What about 3? 3, yeah, 8, 6, yeah, 3 also, right? Because you have to kind of understand the multiplication tables. If you're like, wait a minute, can 3 go into 24? Yes, it can. 3 times 8 is 24. Yeah, it is 24. All right. So you have to think about it like that. That's why I say think about it sequentially. Think about the number 1, then the number 2, then the number 3, then I think about the number 4. What about 4? And you'd say, well, yeah, 4 times 6, right? I'd say, yeah, 4 times 6 is also 24. That's right. Now, what about the number 5? And say, no, 5 times nothing is going to give me 24. I'd say that's correct. And then you think, what about the next number? 6. You say, yeah, 6 times 4. And I'd say, yeah, but isn't 6 times 4 already up there? You'd say, well, yeah, because 4 times 6 is. So 6 times 4, it's the same thing. So I'd say, yeah. Once you've found that you're now repeating yourself when you're thinking about these individual factors, you have now completed the list. There are no other factors. You have now listed them all. Because if you keep going and say, well, what about 7? Can 7 go into 24? The answer, you would say no. What about the number 8? You'd say, yeah, 8. 8 times 3, I'm sorry, 8 times 3 is 24. I'm gonna say, but yeah, but aren't you kind of repeating yourself because it's kind of already up here? That's what I mean, is once you now start repeating yourself, you have now completed the list of factors. So you now have them all. I would say, okay, how many factors does 24 have? And if you said, well, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The number 24 has 8 factors, which means I can divide 24 by 8 different numbers and get a whole number answer. So again, factoring is something that is very helpful. You will be asked it in different versions on the test, different techniques, different skills. Multiplication table is a way to start practicing, but you really do have to start thinking about your multiplication and trying to become a little stronger in it.